friends. Welcome to another episode of Women in Sports Unplugged. Our next guest needs no introduction. Ashwini Nachappa. Ashwini is an accomplished former track and field athlete. Nachappa gained fame around the start of the 1980s when she outran PT Usha on 2 occasions. She has often been referred to as India's Flojo. In 1988, she also received the Arjuna Award. Nachappa represented India in 3 South Asian Federation Games in 1984, in Nepal 2 silver medals, in 1986 in Bangladesh 2 silver medals, and 1988 in Pakistan 3 gold medals. She participated in 2 Asian Games, one held in 1986 at South Korea, and the other in 1990 at Beijing, China, where she won the silver medal in the 4 into 100 meters relay. She also represented India in 2 World Championships, one in 1987 in Rome and the other in 1991 in Tokyo. She was a member of the 4 into 400 meters relay on both occasions. She won the 200 meter gold at the 1990 National Open meet in New Delhi ahead of Usha, clocking 24.07 seconds. Today, she's a noted social worker and educationist. She has also built a school and manages a sports education foundation. She is currently the president of the Bangalore Urban District Athletics Association. Welcome to the show, Ashwini. I am so excited to host you in this series. I have been a big fan of yours since I was a kid. Thank you so much for coming on this show. I'll begin by asking you, what does sport mean to you?
Sport is everything to me. It's part of my life. It's a way of life for me. It has been as a young child, and I think my name Ashwini also means a horse. So
I didn't know that.
I'm meant to run all the time.
Yeah. Tell me, how did you get
it's part of my life.
Yeah. How did you get initiated into it?
If I go back to my school days, way back in, 70s, early 70s, when I was basically in lower primary, I remember having these competitions in school and always beating the boys, my classmates, in, whether it was a 3-legged race or any kind of vanity race that we had. But we moved back from Calcutta to Bangalore to pursue an education then, and happened to be situated, just close to the Contiva Stadium. It's one of the most famous iconic stadium in Bangalore. And my mother would take my sister and myself to the ground and not allow us to play on the streets. So every evening it became a ritual to take us to the ground, and we spent time there. And one of the coaches, Mr. Mohinder Singh Gill, noticed these young kids playing around, and he would bribe us with those 10 paisa, nutrient sweets.
Yes.
And we kept running for sweets, and it just so happened that I collected the most number of sweets, and didn't look back thereafter.
You mentioned your mother, and you mentioned about the coach. So how important do you think is the support of parents, and also finding a coach at the right time to help in the field of sports?
I can say that I was blessed, though my parents were never a sports person. But I think sport has it's an integral part of all Kodavas. They say the Kodava is either born with a hockey stick or a gun. So the kind of sport, is kind of inbuilt in the system. And I think my mom, because my dad continued to work in Birla's, because he was the only earning member at that point in time. Yes. So he continued to stay in Calcutta and come for holidays. We moved back to Bangalore to pursue. I owe everything that I have earned, name, fame, everything, to my mother, because as a mother, 2 young daughters to support and pursue that dream. So she would have seen at her age of 8, taking us every single day till the day I retired. I think that the strength came from her, actions, and she was our role model at that point in time. Uh, the kind of grit, the determination, and the hardship she faced made us all very, very strong. So it's very important for every child in whichever direction he or she chooses, unless there is encouragement from home, it is very, very difficult to pursue that dream.
So, Ashwini, you mentioned about the support that you got from your mother. And I think this applies to all fields, not only sports, how important it is to get that encouragement from the family, whether you want to become a doctor or an engineer, etc., and especially for women to get that encouragement. And it's so amazing to hear this story about your mother. But I wanted to ask you, was your school at that point supportive of you spending so much time training or on sports?
I'm a proud product of a school game. I must reiterate that fact because, schools back then, sports was a vehicle for schools to be known. And the kind of integration of sports and education that happened way back then, sadly, is no longer existing. And, we didn't have vehicles at that point in time. There were no school buses. So all these convents would merge for the inter-school sports at this Kantirva stadium. And we would walk, the teams would walk, 100, 200 children from each school would walk towards the stadium, which is about a kilometer or two away. And designated places year on was for those respective schools. Whether you don't have to block it, it was just known that these teams will sit and these schools will sit, and on top of the stadium would be the cheerleaders from grade 7 to 9 with the principals and school teachers cheering on. So it used to be a huge affair. The Bangalore school sports was like a mini Olympic Games, literally. And because people would see everybody converging at the stadium, the general public would be there to witness this 2 or 3 days event. So we would have spectators.
Wow.
It was such a wonderful atmosphere to grow in. And schools took great pride. I mean, all our schools back then in convent, we were, the state hockey team was filled with some of the Sacred Hearts and Bishop Cotton girls from where I studied, to Sapphires. Many of them became state level athletes and moved on. So, of course, as education took a turn, they opted for various other, profession and moved on. But that was the sporting environment and the culture that existed in schools. So, my PE teacher, sadly, she's no more. She just passed away last month. Beatrice was from Sri Lanka, and her husband was also a PE teacher who would work opposite our school at the Joseph's Convent. And because she noticed both my sister and myself doing well in sports, barely 9, 10 years old, our first spike was given to us from Sri Lanka by her when she went on a holiday. She brought us 2 pairs of spikes.
Wow.
Till then we were running bare feet or with those Bata canvas shoes. So that was a kind of encouragement. And our moved on into our senior school, and our PE teacher, Mr. Pushpangadan, was the best hockey master that we had. We had the best teams. Our teachers encouraged us. I remember doing my ICSE project. I think one of my commerce teachers actually kept my projects ready because I was in the Asian Games camp in '82.
That's amazing.
So I've been blessed, and that's what I'm trying to give back in our small town that we have set up to show people that it is possible for education and sport to go hand in hand.
No, I mean, it's amazing to hear that how much encouragement you got from your school and how it helped you to reach the level that you did. And I was just going to come to ask you about your foundation and the school that you started, because a lot of people are not aware of that. So, right time to ask you that question. And it's great to see you giving back to sports as well. But of course, it benefited you having a school with an encouraging environment. But would love to hear a little bit more about how you thought about starting this school and this foundation.
The school, I also, after I retired from active sports, competitive sports, I was associated with Special Olympics for about 12, 13 years. Kind of headed that program also in Bangalore, where we trained mentally challenged children all over the country and, took teams for the Olympic Games. Uh, and then I also worked, as a volunteer with Parikrama Humanity Foundation, which kind of pursues a quality education for the slum and orphan children in Bangalore city. And there I set up the sports program. So I would take the children to the stadium. They had never, these are all first generation school kids. So we set up the sports program, and a number of our athletes ran bare feet. The kind of potential that existed among these kids was immense. So when I retired from sports and I got involved in all these activities, I was also working as a officer, and my husband and I decided, let's do something in our town, because it's the place that's produced, besides numerous army personnel, a number of international athletes. Yet this smallest district in India really doesn't have the kind of infrastructure that is required for its people. And we started with the education with 25 children from grade 1 to 4, and then started looking for places, because the kind of concept we had, where we wanted to set up a sports foundation which would go along with the school in the same campus.
Yes.
And we moved on with, the next year we had about 90 kids, and then we had 125 kids. So right now we are full up till about over 800 kids from Montessori up to 12th grade, which also houses my sports foundation. We have taken 3 core sport, which is athletics, because I come from that. Yes. Hockey, because Coorg is the hockey, the bed of hockey in South. And my husband was also a junior hockey India player. And an air rifle shooting range. Shooting as our sport, because as I said, we are one of the privileged communities that don't need a license for gun. We are born with a gun. And it was just apt to do the shooting program too. So, and it was like a trial and error, because both my husband and I don't come from the education background. He was into business. And so it was a great learning. We are still learning, and set up this. So from grade 1, in fact, even to the Mont, till grade 12, sports is a very much part of our education curriculum.
Yes.
So, for example, if you have to do shooting, so grade 5 and above, everybody gets into the shooting range. And they do the shooting for a week or 10 days, and we select the children that has the potential. And then they move on to the next sport. Besides the PER, this is what we do also. And it's a great team, because our coaches, as well as the PE department, our foundation coaches, the PE department, and our teachers, have really brought in our vision into this entire system. So I think it's one of a unique kind of a program. And the facility that we have set up is far, far better than some of the city and urban kids that they have. So it's good. It's a great journey. Looking forward to many more years of doing this. Yeah.
No, it sounds incredible. I would love to come one day and visit and see. And I wish more people would do this. So I know Sports Village, who's co-creating this show, is India's largest youth sports platform, and this is their dream to get more children to play. But since we're on this women in sports subject, so in your school, how do you encourage the girls to play? Do you see that the girls are self-motivated, self-driven, or because we see very few women taking up sports even now? So how have you seen that in your school, and what do you do?
It's not just a sport. If you look at our academic program, I think 70% of our staff are women.
Wow.
the academic to to
Bravo.
the residential block to the teacher faculty members. uh, and I don't personally believe that it is only about a girl child when it comes to sport. It is only about economically backward children that we should support, because sport is above all that. It's
Yes.
pure talent and skill. And when people, get back to me, because we also in an NGO and we look for funds, and they said, you must look at a girl child, you must look that they are economically poor. I said, don't bring the economic factor when it comes into sport, because they may be from economic background, but you don't have to highlight that. Let's highlight the talent and skill that exists, and the potential and the nurturing that is important to see that through in achieving their dreams. So uh, we have a great shooting team, which has, I think, more number of girls in it. We've just started the hockey program for the girls. So far, we've had only the boys, and our hockey team has gone in for the local tournaments just to get the kind of exposure.
Yes.
Uh, Athletics, we have almost, I think, 60 boys, 60 40% is the ratio. So I'm not looking at girl or boy when it comes to sport. I would love more and more, kids to be in the program to create at this base level. It's important for girls and boys to have equal opportunities to kind of, and we see girls being more serious in training than the boys. That I must say. Given the kind of environment we have, because it's on a 27-acre property, you see the girls having more commitment in that regard.
No, because you've created the conditions where they feel safe as well, and lots of people I speak to, they feel that the girls, especially if they have to travel alone, etc., the safety issues in the north of our country and in some places, etc. So a lot of girls who would love to do it are not able to do it. But this is amazing that you've created this whole ecosystem in which they are able to flourish. But yeah. But coming back to your career, I wanted to ask you, when did you know that this is going to be your career, that this is going to be your profession?
Uh, my very first, being the school champion, being the inter-school champion, Bangalore school champion for over 2 years, and my very first state championship when I was 10 or 11 years old, under 13, got the gold medal both in 100 and the long jump as well as the hurdles. There was no looking back. I think one of the reasons that I moved on and I never looked back and taking up any other sport was because I started winning at a very young age.
Yes.
Not many are fortunate to have that kind of thing. So I won my very first nationals, brought my very first medal to the Karnataka state under 13, and the chief minister gave me 1,000 rupees on the spot as a prize.
Wow.
This was in 1980. It was held in Bangalore. So I really didn't look at any other sport. I just pursued this, and as I said, my name, is a star as well as a horse. So I continue to run, and I've been blessed to have many people in this journey, right from my parents to my school teachers to the various coaches to the groundsmen that supported me, and to everybody who's been a part of this journey for myself. Otherwise it would not have been possible to achieve what I have achieved.
Yes. No, I mean, it's wonderful because you've described it as it's like a team. It's like a full team working together, and you've achieved.
No success is individual. No success is individual. It takes a whole lot of support system, uh, both financially, emotionally, uh, and at the ground level, what needs to be done from every person, from picking up my bag to raking the long jump pit to keeping the hurdles ready for me. It takes the entire team, to really be with you in that journey.
So tell me, I mean, there's so many races you participated in, so many events you participated in, but is there, I know this is difficult, but is there a favorite race of yours or something which you feel was a defining moment for you in your career?
I think my very first nationals, I was representing the Karnataka state in 60 meters hurdles and the 100 meters. And so happened that my 60 meters hurdle race was a day before the 100 meters. And I got through to the finals, and I remember it was, you know, all on the starting blocks. The race started. I was leading, and in the last hurdle, I tripped and fell. And Renuka from representing Maharashtra came first. I still remember it, and I fell. I was bruised up so badly on my knee, uh, and I cried and cried because coming
Yes.
really coming first, and I missed that gold medal, and the whole team was like really upset. But that was done, though I was just about 12 years old. Next day was my 100 meters, and I ensured that all this is just blanked out at that age. Put bandage on my leg, everything, and I ran the race of my life, coming first and the first medal for Karnataka. And I had the whole crowd cheering me and patting me on my back. So that's something that I will remember forever. And the second race that would be beating Osha
Yes.
for sure, because she was Asia's finest athlete. Uh, I think nobody has come close to that even till today. Uh, so beating her, we always ran races together, Usha and me, though she was senior to me. But
Yes.
it was understood that every race we were there in, she would come first and I would come second. And in '87, when I really moved on uh, with shifting in a particular event to the 400 meters, and not really restricting myself to 100 meters. Did the 200 and the 400, and 200 became my pet event. I worked on it, I think, mentally more than I worked physically on it. And beating time was more important than beating Usha. And I think with that kind of mindset, it helped me really set my targets, work on it mentally, visualizing, doing all kinds of mental training that was required under Dr. Rupan Das, who had come, a sports psychologist who had come down from the US. He saw me training, he heard about me, and after my training, he says, Ashwini, why don't you just try the mind training sessions? And I didn't even batter an eyelid. And I said, sure, why not? And right on the ground, we did a session. And that's how, everybody trains equally hard. Everybody is physically fit. But I think the winner is always the one who's mentally more strong. Uh, and that's what I worked towards. And I think those two races, beating Usha, was definitely one of the highlights of my career.
Yeah, I mean, we all saw that race and we all remember that. I remember that race. But you talked about mental training, and I was actually going to ask you, a lot of people talk about the physicality of sport and how you have to physically be fit and all the physical training that you do. And I was going to ask you, how important is the mental aspect of it, and how do you inculcate that in your sports foundation when you're training the kids?
It's equally important, if not equally, I would say more important. Because in anything in life that you want to pursue, it's important to know how your mind is. Is your mind equipped to really achieve that target? And that requires training. It's not just positive affirmations that you keep giving yourself, but it is actually working on it day in, day out. How you work on, controlling your emotions, your tensions before a race. What have you visualized with the target, your competitors? You work on various aspects. So when you're on the field, you know exactly what you're going to be doing and what you have to deliver. That kind of training is definitely required. Meditation is one of very important aspect of, controlling your emotions, because every athlete, including Usain Bolt, I keep telling all my kids, has tension, has butterflies within. But how you channelize that kind of tension into a positive energy, and how you work towards it. He may be dancing, showing all that, but that's his way of really handling that kind of little jitters that everybody is bound to have before a race. So controlling those emotions are very, very important, and that's why I say working on mental aspect is very, very important. A sound mind is found only in a sound body.
Yes, and it helps that body also be sound if your mind is sound. But before a race, did you ever have a ritual or something that you used to do? A lot of sports stars have a ritual or something that they do. They say something or they do something.
No, I would just say a small prayer in my heart. And basically, that has been a ritual. You enter the ground, you say a prayer. You work out, you walk out of the ground after your training, you say thank you for, so that ritual, I think most sports persons have.
Yes.
And, when you're on the blocks, you're zoned out, you know what you want to achieve. So, not
Yes.
in particular what, that I don't know. Maybe I had long nails for every rag.
Yeah, India's flow too. I can never forget that.
I don't think I had a standard, set kind of a ritual before the race.
But tell me, if you had to meet your 15-year-old self today, what would you tell her?
Well, live your dreams. That's what I did. That's what I did. I mean, uh, in hindsight, if I really go back to my career, there was nobody to guide us, nobody to tell us, do this, don't do that, nothing.
Yes.
And it's just sheer the passion, the interest that flowed. And I also think, since we all came from very average backgrounds, the kind of struggle we have seen, we had to emerge out of it at any cost. And that really, I think, gave me that kind of focus that didn't really change till I retired. I had to do it I always tell all these kids, you must have small goals, just like the way we climb small steps to achieve, to reach the top. You have to get those small goals at every stage in life.
Yes.
And it's the same with my sports, with my movies that I did, with my, unless you have that. I was working as a sports officer in Vijay Bank for 16 years. Uh, Everything that you do, you must give that 100% commitment. And at the start of the day, you say, this is the kind of work that I'm going to be doing today. And you see what you have achieved it towards the end of the day, whether you have that happy quotient or not. You're satisfied that your day went well. And I think if you start getting into that habit of analyzing your day's work, uh, it makes you a better person. It makes you realize, okay, this is the area that I didn't work today. Maybe tomorrow I will do these things. That self-evaluation is very, very important.
No, I think very important point. Self-evaluation across all professions is so important. Start your day with and have some goals for the day, and it helps you at the end of the day then to see what have you achieved, what have you not, why you couldn't do it. You can do that self-evaluation.
Yeah, unless you do that, you're not self-motivated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And that goes hand in hand. So as you analyze, you say, okay, tomorrow I need to do this, and let me see how much better I can do it. And then you are motivated automatically. Nobody has to tell you to do, yes, there is the support system that motivates you, but unless you are self-motivated, you really don't see the larger picture.
Yes, yes, self-motivation is so important. Before we move to the rapid fire round, I wanted to ask you a question. What message would you give to girls today who are looking at sports as a career? And more importantly, what would you tell the parents and the schools how to encourage women and girls to take up sports as a career?
In a way, this COVID-19 is a blessing because the kind of stress and importance that has been given for physical fitness,
Yes.
right from central government to the Jilla Panchayat level, where everybody is talking about being fit to really get over this pandemic, how important is physical exercise and the kind. Uh, and I don't think it a physical, it should have come to this stage because for every child, physical fitness is the most important. You want to gauge the health of our nation, it is through physical fitness. If you're physically fit, you are a productive citizen. Right? So I think the kind of importance, sadly, this had to, come at this time, but it should have been way back in 70s when we grew up. The kind of environment, sporting environment, the kind of encouragement was, there was no television. There was, televisions came in much later. It was just the print media that highlighted all our, even the smallest event they would highlight. Today, it is not that. Today, we are not showcasing young kids who are performing in sports. And I think every child wants that incentive, wants that kind of pat on the back, wants to be seen to be doing well. And I think somewhere we are only highlighting, children who have achieved at the national level, grassroots, base level, school level. You're really not encouraging across India. And unless you throw it open, luckily now we have the Khelo India sport to a certain extent, which has kind of brought in a little more inclusivity into, whether it's the state board or the central board. But much has to be done at the grassroots. That's a central board scheme. But every state needs to do it because every state, sports is a state subject, just like education is.
Yes.
And I believe for anything to take off well, you need a good leadership. If the leadership believes that sport is the way that our youth will go forward and it can be part of our, it shouldn't be devoid of education. The kind of life's learning that goes on the play field, you will never learn within the four walls of the classroom. Right? And I think that is what is important. If the leadership believes, we can have great programs in every district. Whether it's the district administration that believes in doing this and promoting it, whether it's the state administrator. So it takes a good leader to do that.
Yes. No, and your point on it starts at the grassroots level is also so important. And if you see the countries where you see all these sports people coming out from, it starts at the grassroots level. Absolutely. It starts in their town, then in their district, and then in their state,
You take, whether it's the Manchester United or whether it's the Barcelona, their junior programs are so strong. Yes. You take India's bench strength. In hockey, where is the bench strength? Other than cricket in our country, yes. There is no bench strength because cricket is really promoted right through. Tennis, we don't have a bench strength. Athletics, to a certain extent, it's coming up one or two. But really across disciplines, where is our bench strength?
That's true. Yeah. That's right. And there are some sports which have gained a lot of popularity, like boxing and shooting and badminton. But, we still need to develop that bench strength. Yeah.
After Saina, in badminton, if you take, yeah. Jwala is retired, Ashwini Nachappa is there for how many decades? So is PV Sindhu and, Saina. Who's after that? Do we have it? So we have to really go into a rethinking of how we're going to be doing this. And I believe that the club level sport must be encouraged. Community sports must be encouraged. Every community must have, a sporting environment. Unless you encourage those things, the base of the pyramid will never broaden for you to, get more champions there.
Oh, grassroots levels, a big takeaway for me. So now we have come to the final section, which is the rapid fire round. I'm going to say 5 words, And when I say the word, you have to tell me what comes into your mind. Okay, great. So shall we go for it?
Yes.
Okay, the first word is passion.
Interest.
The second one is sport.
Life, learning.
The third one is family.
My support.
Fourth one, favorite exercise.
Now it is yoga. Yoga and golf.
Okay. And the last one, food.
Don't laugh at me, but I love pani puri.
Oh, I'm a North Indian, puchkas and pani puri.
I love puchkas. I know. I know. I'm sure your viewers will laugh at me, but I prefer more vegetarian than.
Okay. Okay. No, thank you so much, Ashwini. I really enjoyed having you on the show, and you've been such an inspiration. Big fan of yours. So many interesting takeaways. I'm sure the viewers and the listeners found this talk as inspirational as I did. Friends, you can find this talk on YouTube channel #ZipTofitness, on podcast, Spotify, and Apple Tunes, ZipTalks, and on Instagram, ZipTofitness. Thank you.
Thank you, Radha.